Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Backcountry Manifesto podcast brought to you by Sharedport. I'm your host, Hayden Samak. Today, we're trying something new. We're doing these really short intros. So Andrew put 15 seconds on the clock right there. There it is. Today on the show, we're talking to Matt Brenna of Alaska Cabin Adventures. Matt decided to build a cabin by himself with not a lot of experience. He documented the entire journey, and now he makes a lot of really cool YouTube videos of his life and daily activities surrounding the cabin. Not sure where we are on the clock. But today, we're talking with him about all things cabin building, his YouTube channel, and some great advice for those wanting to build their very own, secluded getaway. So without further ado, our chat with Matt Brenna. It's been really awesome having you in town, man. Doing the heading down to do a little fishing, do a little filming. Yeah. That was a hoot. Yeah. That's hard fishing.
Humbling.
Yeah.
Very humbling. Coming from Alaska fishing to that kind of fishing is
they're different things.
Yeah.
They're different things. What do you fish for most in Alaska? I mean, I know, but maybe the viewers or listeners are interested.
I'm a big trout chaser. I like all the small stream fishing, trout, grayling, lake trout, char. And then I do a good bit of salmon fishing, but not like as much as the small stream, like trout and grayling fishing, because I go dip netting. And not a lot of people know what dip netting is, but in Alaska, if you're a resident, you have access to a permit once a year where you get to go and like take an actual like 5-foot hoop, like a net, a huge net, and just dunk it into the ocean in the middle of the sockeye salmon run and scoop out like hundreds of fish. Well, not hundreds, but it's like 35
or something.
It's 35 per household and then an additional 10 per household member. So like between me and my wife, we can do 45. And now with our daughter, I guess we can get 55. 55 sockeye. I mean, that's like hundreds of pounds of meat. So yeah.
Do you, where are you? Because it's not like I feel as if some people are going to listen and they're going to be like, oh, he's like on a boat and he's like dipping into like, it's not like that. You find some sort of like, is it like a hydraulic like sort of thing? Like a river jump or?
No, well, okay. So there's a few different.
Waterfall?
Right. Well, yeah, actually all those things, exactly everything you just said in a weird way. There's a few different dip net fisheries. The one that I do is the Kenai River.
Yeah.
And the area that I go is the beach. So like you don't feel like you're on a river. You feel like you're dip netting in the middle of the ocean, like on a beach. It's like this big wide, like the ocean's right in front of you and you're sticking this like net with like a 5-foot pole on it. And like, you're like, I'm not going to catch anything. Like the ocean's out there. I'm right here. But the thing is that the sockeye salmon run the shoreline. And so you're at the mouth. So if you look at it on a map, it's like it funnels in, but where you're standing, you're shocked that that's where the fish are, but they run the shoreline.
So they're orienting themselves into the current, kind of coming down both sides of that funnel.
Correct. And like on the outgoing tide, the fresh water scent from that river that they're honing in on is coming out. So it like hits their nose on that outgoing tide, and then they like run that smell in. At least that's one of the theories about how they find their way back. But there's other fisheries too. There's like the Copper River, and that's like really scary and technical. You're down in like a gorge and you have to like rope up and stand on slippery rocks and like dip into like eddies.
That's some of the most sought after salmon in the world is the
Copper River Red is the salmon. Yep, it is. And the reason is that salmon travels like hundreds of miles to its spawning grounds, which means that it needs more fat reserves from the time it leaves the ocean into the fresh water than the other fish do. So it makes it much fattier.
And not only that, but it's such a, like you said, like not only is it steep for the people looking at dip net, it's also steep for the salmon trying to get up river. So they have to be.
Not so much actually, because it's like a canyon. Now the river itself is a pretty low gradient. Yeah, there's no waterfalls to run for that. I mean, it's a large, cold, swift river. Steep as in swift. Yeah, I mean, there's no waterfalls on that one though. However, there is on the Russian River, which is a tributary of the Kenai, and that is a resident sustenance license only. which I've got a family member that has that, but you have to like bike into it and you can fish them like right at the falls. And, but that one's crazy because it's like those fish are covered in lures and hooks and stuff they're the ones who make it past the combat fishermen.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, Copper River, I mean, I guess, I'm not totally familiar with all of the stretches of it, but where I've fished them, it's just a long, big, swift, cold river to get to where they want to be. And, yeah, make for good eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what originally brought you up to Alaska? Like, you know, what are cause you are not, sorry, I'm going to, as you heard me say in the intro, Matt and I are going to talk about cabin stuff, but you know, we're just kind of bullshit. So if you skipped ahead, that's what this podcast is about. We're going to be talking about how to build your own cabin, how to find the land, what kind of attributes you're looking for, the challenges, you know, the adventure, and all this can be found on Matt's YouTube channel. I just want to plug that right from the top, and there'll be
Cabin Adventures.
Yeah. Here, wait, do it to that one. Give
Alaska Cabin Adventures.
Alaska Cabin Adventures. We're going to have links all over this thing. Yeah. But what drew you to Alaska in the first place? Because you're from Washington.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, fishing, totally. That was a big thing of it. So growing up, my dad was always like, one day, son, we'll go fish Alaska, where it's like, you know, rainbows as big as they come, and, you know, just this like world apart, right? Like this iconic world of fishing. And so that had a huge appeal. And then when it came time to go to college, my mom worked for a university that had a scholarship exchange program. So there's other colleges within this network that you could get a free tuition. And I tried to go to a different school and didn't get in because my GPA in high school was like literally like a 2.1. Like I was
me too.
Piece of garbage high
Look
school
at us
student.
now.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I know. Here we are. We've got a lot of things in common. But yeah, and so one of the schools on that list was Alaska Pacific University. And I thought, man, I've always wanted to go to Alaska, and it's great fishing up there, and this is my chance to go. And so maybe I'll go for like a semester and live an adventure, and then I'll go back down to the real world and get in line with the program. But after I had applied, this PBS documentary popped up called Alone in the Wilderness.
Yeah.
The story of Dick Pernicke going to Alaska in like the 60s, like mid 60s, early 60s, and just building a cabin, like alone, hand tools. And I was like fully inspired. I was like, oh yeah, like that's what I want to do.
When did you see this? How old were you?
I was senior in high school. Okay. It's like 17, 18. It's probably 17 actually. Yeah. And like I said, I just kind of at the same time found this school that would take me for free. And the other thing about APU is that like you can get in with a 2.1. Let's be real, like Alaska Pacific is not exactly like, it's not an Ivy League setup. And it's a very much like do-it-yourself kind of school. So it's like you find your passion and your path, and you kind of design your own curriculum. And what I studied there was film and music. Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Later in life, that would be the two things I do and make a living on. But yeah, so I came up to go to school, and it was like, that was it. I bought a car the next summer and drove up from Washington, and I lived in a tent for like the first 5-6 months of time in Alaska. Well, so I had a year there in the dorms, and then I was like, I came back home like, well, life isn't here anymore for me. Like this isn't where I live. And so, like I said, I bought this cheap car, a little Honda CR-V, and drove the Alcan, and just lived in a tent for like 5 months in Alaska. And safe to say, those were like the happiest years of my life. You know, I mean, that's debatable now that I've got a kid. It's pretty. Things are pretty good. Yeah. Not to downplay any of the other parts of my life, but
in a certain way,
it was truly like an iconic, you know, landmark time in my life to like become who I wanted to become and just get to, you know, discover the things that mattered. So, but anyway, if you've never lived in a tent, I highly recommend it. Like, you know, spend 5 or 6 months just living in a tent. It's like, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. Anyway, the winter came along and I got a girlfriend and things changed, but, yeah. So anyway, and I ended up there and finished school. And then but I always had my sights set on building a cabin in the woods. And then, you know, so when it came time to start kind of putting roots down, that's what I wanted to do.
You were like cabin in the woods time. Cabin
in the woods. Yep.
Okay. So you're 17, you go to school, you really like it, move up there, live in a tent. When were you like, okay, seriously, I'm going to build a cabin?
Yeah. So I'd been up there for a couple of years at that point, and I started looking at land. And the way that I found the land was that, I'd been fishing up north a bit. and was like, oh my God, this is like amazing fishing. And I was like, I need a fishing cabin.
Right.
And then I got into mountain activities, climbing and skiing and different like winter recreation stuff. And sure enough, up north is the place to do it. I was into hiking and lakes and canoeing and stuff like that. Oh, sure enough, up north is the place to do it. So, yeah. And what was funny is that I had no building abilities whatsoever. Like literally didn't know what end of the hammer to use. I'd never built a single thing in my entire life. And I had a buddy who, was like, yeah, dude, I'll help you build a cabin. Just buy some land. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. I'll just do that then. So I bought this land, or I found land that was insanely cheap. It was $10,000 for like an acre and a half, cleared on a pond, driveway in, like ready to go land. I mean, cleared to a degree. It didn't have a pad or anything, but the trees had been cut down.
Right.
And then when it came time to build the cabin, things were happening in his life that were not great. Going through a big breakup, and he, not throw him under the bus or anything, buddy, but he basically ghosted me and was like, just, fell off the map, and we weren't really friends anymore. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to figure out how to do this on my own. And so people ask me all the time, like, how did you learn how to do this with no experience? Like, how did you figure it out?
No choice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, right. Necessity. Necessity drives innovation, right? So, so the answer to that question though is like, no, there's not any one book I went out and bought. I didn't buy like the book on how to build a cabin, but of course, YouTube videos like mine. And before I was making them, I was using other folks' videos. Like,
who were some of your favorites?
I don't even remember, because it would be like, I wasn't like watching things like holistically. I was like, how to frame a 16 on center wall. And it would be like that one little thing. It's like, tomorrow I'm going to worry about how to join the walls. Today, it's like, how do I do this? And so everything was like one step at a time. And that's what I always emphasize to folks. They reach out to me all the time and be like, oh, what should I do? How should I do this? Like, just focus on the step that's next. Don't focus on the big thing. If you're worrying about how you're going to like design like your roof pitch before you've done your foundation, like just don't. Like, you'll get there. Just one thing at a time.
What do you think the first step is?
I mean, truly, the first step is like, you got to want it bad, because building a cabin's tough, dude.
Yeah.
But really, like, get land, decide, and the way you choose your land is you want to have it somewhere that you want to be, right? What's the point of being in a cabin if you don't want to go outside and enjoy the area around it? So for me, there was fishing, there was hunting, there was skiing, there was snow machining, there was, every activity that I like to do outside. My cabin is nestled in the like the mecca of all of it, the mecca of fly fishing, the mecca of mountains. I mean, at least in my opinion. So that's step one, is like, decide where you want to be, find the land, and then decide if that land is going to be buildable. So in frost areas like Alaska, Montana, that's the big question, is like, well, what about the frost line? I got to dig, 8 feet down and do all this. And the big thing about that is your soil. Like, you just need to go out with a shovel in the summer and dig up some soil. Is there sand? Is there clay? Is there gravel? Is there bedrock underneath it? Are you in a swamp? Like, if you dig down, is that hole filled with water? And if you can find well-drained soil that's mostly like gravel, sand, you're not really going to have a big problem with frost heaving. Mostly because water is what makes it heave, right? It's not the fact that it freezes, it's the fact that water gets in and constricts around that sonotube or whatever foundation you do, then pushes up. And the force of ice is obviously unstoppable. So as long as you're in a well-drained area, like, you don't have to worry a ton about it. But if you are going to build in like a swamp or something muskeggy, like, yeah, that's going to be a whole different engineering ball game. But yeah, pick some land, decide what kind of cabin you want, and start thinking about how you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And, people always are like, oh, you must have trust fund money, you must come from money. And it's funny to me.
Yeah, you should have seen my tent. It was nice as shit.
Right, exactly. Like, dude, I literally lived in a tent with $500. Like, I got great parents. They gave me nothing financially, nothing, not a single dollar. The deal for me to go to this school in Alaska was that it was the only one I could afford, because it was like, oh, you got free tuition here. And so I worked a job. I was a music teacher. Not a lot of people know this. This is the good inside dirt that you'll only get on the Backcountry Manifesto podcast. I worked as a music teacher, teaching private guitar lessons and banjo lessons and ukulele and bass and whatever. And I worked 4 days a week, just busting through a bunch of lessons. And then on the weekends, I'd pack up and head out to the cabin or the cabin site. And and start working. And so it's like when people see what I have, they assume that like it's like I went out and bought it one day. Like, oh, I invested all this money, and I didn't. I shopped land that was cheap, and I put it on a loan, and I spent like $80 a month on like a 15-year, and eventually like paid it down quicker. But that was super affordable. I think even for someone who like I made like straight up $45K was like my average income for like from like years 2012 or 2010 to pretty dang recently actually. And it's like you get a tax return. Oh sweet, I got $1,500. Like that's my framing lumber. And also when I was building the cabin, the lumber was definitely cheaper. A lot cheaper. This was 2014. Actually, I started framing in 2015.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you start putting together the finances and one thing at a time, like one little step in front of the other. My cabin was just like a plywood box. It didn't have like nice interior siding and couches and all that until years later. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So pick your land, figure out how you're going to save the money.
Yep.
Save the money. Do you think that it's like, well, I mean, it seems like based on your answer, right? It's achievable for most folks.
100%. Yeah. Dude, I'm not a strong, I'm 5'11" and can barely bench over 100 pounds. Like,
yeah. Well, you're a musician. So like,
exactly. I'm a musician. I'm a doughy, sensitive little musician kid who wanted to be a rugged, badass Alaskan. Like that's just the truth about it. Like I saw Dick Pernicilli, I was like, that's who I want to be. And that's the thing about life that's cool is it's like you actually get to decide who you want to be. Like if you want to be a really awesome person who does great things for the world and for other people, like that's what you get to go do. You don't have to succumb to accepting, oh, this is who I am. Like you get to decide who you are. You get to invent who you are. And so I was a kid from the suburbs who played guitar, who was not like a grizzled backcountry Alaskan builder. It just wasn't. And in a way, I'm still not, but those are the things I decided to do. And so I went and did them. And I think that mindset is what a lot of people are missing in terms of just achieving whatever goal they want to achieve, if that's building a cabin or not. But yeah, you just start doing it, man. Just go do it. It's like the Nike commercial. Just do it, right?
Yeah. Did you have like any fantasy, like I'm going to build this cabin and then I'm going to record like a Bon Iver-esque? I say Bon Iver, man. And I said this to Sean Carey on this podcast that I used to host a long time ago, who's in that band. I kept calling it Bon Iver, and I think it got on his nerves.
Bon Iver or something.
Yeah, whatever. Forget it. Did you have any like that fantasy? Like I'm going to build this cabin. I'm going to record like.
Yeah, of course. Immediately, like to me, like music and being in the woods was like one and the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
I used to feel that way because like we talked. I was a musician for a while, and that always used to kind of crack me up when you'd see like photos of musicians like in the woods with their instruments. I'd be like, dude,
right?
When does this ever happen?
Yeah,
I'm gonna take my guitar for a hike.
Yeah, it's like swatting mosquitoes. Like, sorry, Neil Young. Like
a fucking like very, very expensive vintage Gibson in like the woods. I'd be like, dude, I know you came back, you put that in like the case and like was like, okay, it needs to stay in there for 6 months to rehydrate.
Right. Like you see pictures of the band, like, and they're all wearing like Civil War era clothes, like out in the woods, like looking like they've been out there for days. But that's the only band I might actually buy that's like actually was their vibe.
I kind of like that because they're like nodding towards the absurdity of it.
Right.
Like they're not like, oh, like this is how it was. Like, but it's kind of like, taking portraits by train tracks. It's
exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Is that where you go to hang out?
Yeah.
So you designed this cat. How much of, I'm trying to figure out like a good way to kind of structure this. So we've been through picking the land, why you pick the land. We're talking about the kind of mindset that you need. We're talking about the financial resources that you need. And we're talking about it as an accessibility, like how accessible is it for the average person to go and do this thing? And it sounds like you can find land for cheap, relatively cheap.
Some places.
Yeah, you can. It is not out of most people's financial means. It is not out of most people's. Well, God, it's so hard when you're talking about finances in that you and I had a conversation about flying planes and, because I used to fly small aircraft and it was like, well, yeah, but like that has to be like your whole thing.
Right.
And I feel like building a cabin is like, it kind of has to be your whole thing. Like that sort of lifestyle, you need to be in it for the process. It cannot be like
while you're building it, you're all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
You know, so as long as they have that sort of mindset, it's like pretty accessible.
I think so.
How do you start planning? Is like there a lot of like fly by night stuff? Are you like talking about a specific number of features that you would, or a specific type of feature that's like a non-negotiable, and you start out from there?
Right.
How do you go about designing your cabin?
Yeah. Well, I was sort of a visionary dreamer. It was like I could like close my eyes and see the cabin I wanted. Like that's like,
how close did you come?
Pretty damn close. Yeah. Pretty dang close. Cool. Functionality. What do you want out of it? Do you want a bathroom? Do you want it to have, a porch? Like, so to me, like it's all about orienting the view. Like, what are you looking at? I've got a pond. So I was like, okay, well, I want windows and I want them look in this direction. I want a porch and I want to go in this direction. So yeah, I mean, like in terms of design, cabins are pretty simple. They're a box. Yeah. And that's what's funny is like people are like, oh, do you have plans? Like, do you sell like blueprints for your cabin?
Have you ever seen a cube?
Yeah. It's like, dude, it's a box. Like, it's literally a box, and you learn the basics of framing and put it together. Like, no, there's no plans because you're not going to find the same window sizes I have. You're not going to find the exact door that I have. Like, go buy all of your things that you need to frame around first. That's huge. Buy your windows, buy your door, figure out like all the stuff that needs to happen around that. So when you frame, you're not like, okay, well, I built a 4-foot window. Now I have to go buy a custom window that fits this. That's important.
One of my favorite scenes in your entire YouTube series is you finding out that you are going to have a problem with this door. We're going to play that just over the whole thing. This guy's
actually watched the videos. That's like pretty deep in there. I'm impressed.
Dude.
Very good.
We're going to play that right here.
The height of the door measured 80 inches, and so I framed my rough opening to be about ½ inch bigger than that. But I made a serious mistake when I didn't account for the width of the subfloor plywood, which is 3/4 of an inch. Meaning that my door was 1/4 inch too tall for the opening that I had cut for it. Framed it too short. That's gonna suck.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously they just watched a little clip of what happened. Tell us like the kind of big challenge there. And then tell us some like other challenges that you kind of run into.
Well, that's like a microcosm. And in my newest series, I just finished building a cabin on a trailer, which I'm calling like a tiny cabin on wheels, or a cabin on wheels.
Yeah.
Just finished that. That series is going to be completed, and some big videos on that about to come out, or maybe we'll be out by the time this airs. But
when are you planning on putting those out?
Like within the next couple of days. So early April of 2025.
Yeah. No, don't date it like that. They're already out.
Yeah, these videos are out. Go check it out. I built a tiny cabin on wheels, and it's awesome.
There you go.
But anyway, in that series, I tried really hard to include more of that.
Okay.
More of the like, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like I framed this wrong, because that happens all the time, because I have no clue what I'm doing, zero clue. And so I learn from these mistakes. So with that door, what I did was I just put the header, which is the framing member that distributes the load around openings, because like the roof pushes down, right? So if you have a big gap in that, like the weight is going to push on that top piece. So you need something to reinforce it. So I just put the header as tall as it would go, and just miscalculated that opening, and there wasn't enough room for that door. And so I actually took the time to film that. Normally when I was first kind of making videos, I was like, I don't want to put that in there because that would make me look stupid. Or like, oh, I can't believe I did that. That's like a mistake. I better fix it and then get back to filming. But then I realized like, well, what am I really doing here? Like, I'm trying to express to people that you could do this too. That, of course I make mistakes, but the nice thing about wood is that you can fix a lot of mistakes with a saw. Like you can, with a hammer, nail, and saw, you can fix a lot of mess ups. So that's what I did. I went in with a Sawzall and just, and I had like hundreds of comments like, why don't you just cut the bottom of the door off? And it's like, dude, that's in a pre-hung door jamb. Like you can't cut the jamb off. Like, anyway, I don't need to get into that, but But I did it the only way that would make sense. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And you run into stuff like that all the time. On my most recent build, there was like a piece of trim that ran right into an electrical outlet. And you're not like sitting there when you're wiring the cabin, like envisioning the trim. You're just like, oh, this box is going to go here. Duh. And then 4 months later, when you're going to do the trim, you're like,
damn it.
Why did I put that there? So, again, out comes a Sawzall and just, and you figure something out, which has always been my thing. I'm kind of a hack. Like I'm better at framing, like swinging a big hammer at something than I'm at like nice, fine little details. But with the new build, I've really taken my time and tried to make it look good from like the smallest details. That's been a fun learning experience. And I had some breath to do that. I think when you're in the throes of framing a cabin, it's overwhelming. And you start getting into like the F it mode where it's like, oh, it's 1.5 inches off. Like, F it, just throw the plywood on there and hit it with the framing nailer, like move on. And honestly, you can get away with a lot of that with framing. Like there's a lot of forgiveness, but when you get into the finish work, like you want to be proud of your product. So
sure. What do you think the biggest, other than the door, other than, dealing with your laissez-faire attitude earlier in the build and then having to rectify it later.
Yeah.
What do you think is the primary, what are the biggest issues that you've had?
Foundation. Yeah, foundation. I did my foundation on my main cabin like insanely wrong, like crazy wrong. But it just goes to show you that just because you read it on Reddit that it has to be this way doesn't mean that it's not going to hold up for 100 years. Like my foundation should fall down. Right. It's crazy. Like I poured concrete piers, but I didn't put rebar in them, and they stick up above the ground. So like concrete actually is has very bad tensile strength. I'm not sure, but basically you're supposed to put rebar in it to keep the columns from like just toppling over. Yeah. I didn't know that. I also didn't conceptualize. Again, building the foundation of my first cabin, I knew nothing. So I put like all thread in the concrete thinking that, I can make this adjustable. But like, duh, dude, like the thing that sticks up is like that's not adjustable. It doesn't work like that. So anyway, I had to like saw them off and do all this crazy crap. And my actual entire like main 16 by 20, 10-foot wall, half loft, 8-foot porch cabin is sitting on like the wrong brackets that if I was to remove these cut 2x4 blocks that hold it up, it would just like fall down. Like they should be rotten and falling down by now. And somehow they're just perfectly fine. Like it's crazy how bad it is.
Alaska doesn't have many code enforcements to worry about, huh?
Well, depending on the area. Where I'm at, there's none. Not a single thing. Yeah. There's not a permit to...
I kind of assumed, like, you talking about it is...
do whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is a big part of the appeal.
Outside, we're going to get into systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Outside of that, what was the most complex thing to kind of put together as far as not a challenge to overcome in, like, the sense of a fuck up? Like a challenge to overcome in the sense
of actually building,
just like a tough thing to do.
Yeah. Roofing. Yeah. Roofs are tough. Figuring out how to cut a rafter is tough, and then doing it effectively. It's math. The best way to do it is with math. There's a lot of ways to do it that don't require math, and none of them actually really work all that great. In my opinion, I'm sure a lot of old school framers are like, yeah, okay, whatever, boy. But to me, it was like, I just mathed it out and still didn't work. Little did I know is because there's a warp in like the beam. And so like I built one rafter that I was like, well, why isn't this working? It should work. Well, it's because that beam was in a weird spot at that one point. So then I did all the rafters to that. I gang cut them. Went in and turns out none of those other rafters fit because they were all going to be in the right spot except for this one. So like, yeah, getting your roof to work, but also you just have to remember, like, it doesn't matter. Like if your bird's mouth isn't like perfectly seated against like your double top plate, it's all good, dude. Like it's all good. Like no one's going to see it. No one's going to care. The structure's not going to fall down. And I guess I'm talking to myself in the past right now. Like it's all good, Matt, like move on. Cause I would stress about that. Like, why isn't it perfect? You know, especially with Instagram now and like all the stuff that you see of framers doing all this stuff that looks like incredible and perfect. And it's just not the reality of framing. But yeah, roofs are really tough. Calculating roof pitch. You have to get into like understanding like how to cut a stud that's going to like fit on that. Like, okay, well, if this is, but like if you, did okay in geometry class, you'd be good to go. But again, a calculator in Google is a powerful tool. Yeah. And so I'd say not worry about it until you get to that point. Deciding roof pitch, like if you're in a snow area, you want a steep roof. If not, it doesn't really matter. it's like, it's all really simple stuff when you break it down to its fundamentals.
Do you ever consider doing an A-frame?
Yeah.
Yeah. A house that's all roof.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem with it, right? It's like, it seems to me like a catastrophic waste of space unless you did a really interesting like loft up top. And the other thing is that my cabin gets like over 10 feet of snow on average per year, like 10 feet sitting on the ground. Like it's an insane amount of snow. I've been out there for 36 to like 48 inch snowstorms. Before I was making YouTube videos, I got legitimately stuck there for like 5 or 6 days and finally had to like plow my way out with a shovel and just like dig and like plow with my truck and dig. It was like 8 or 9 hours of like insane effort to get out and get fuel and stuff like that. But, so an A-frame to me, it's like, where does the snow go? Wouldn't it just continually pile up and like push in on the walls? I don't know. I know a lot of people build A-frames in deep snow country though. So
Must work.
I think they look cool.
I think they look cool too. All right. Well, hey, look, man, we're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about the systems, like, that being electric, water, sewer.
Right.
Because, right, you can tap right into the sewer.
Everything that's on your utility bill.
Yep. Everything that's on your utility bill. Yeah. I want to talk about day-to-day life in the cabin, plans for the future. I want to talk more about the trailer cabin. And yeah, so we're going to be right back. Hang out, guys. The sponsors make the show happen. Listen to what they have to say. And we'll be back in a minute. Hey guys, this is Ad Hayden coming to you, or I guess semi-Ad Hayden. We had a whole bunch of ad copy written up, but I don't think I need it for this product. I just want to tell you about something that I like genuinely. That's sharedpour.com. Sharedpour.com is the place to go, in my humble opinion, if you're looking for hard-to-find bourbons, allocated whiskeys. I know that those two are sometimes the same thing. Or just spirits in general. I've been using them since way before we even considered being partners with them. Actually, since before, Andrew, I think, when did we start recording episodes for this? Yeah, like since before we recorded the first episode of Backcountry Manifesto. And here, look, here's the receipts to prove it. You see this bottle of Mammoth from our bourbon? That's a single barrel select right there. Now check this out. Here, where you can hear it too if you're listening. Right, is that gonna be in frame, Andrew? Okay, well right here, I don't know. There's my receipt from March of 2024. I really do use these people. I believe in like them as a company. They're great folks. Now, if you're 21 or older, that is very important. If you're a minor, pay no attention to this advertisement. And you live in the United States, sharedpour.com will ship liquor straight to your doorstep. You'll need a signature. But they'll do it with flat rate shipping, which is really helpful if you're ordering a couple bottles. That way you don't pay out the nose through shipping. You could order like 10, 15 bottles. I don't know, maybe Craig, don't get mad at me. And they will ship for the same price as one. The other thing is that they're customer service experts. If you call them, should you have a problem with your order, and you won't, you will get a person who actually works there answering the phone and making the issue right. They have the best selection, whether it's a single barrel pick, again, a hard to find allocated bourbon, or even your daily sipper. You should check out sharedpour.com. And right now, and that is ad speak, you can use code BACKCOUNTRY, okay? That's Backcountry, all one word, all caps. I think that's important. That's what they were texting me and telling me was important. You will get 10% off your entire purchase at sharedpour.com. Go check them out. You'll like them as much as I do. You'll get a bunch of cool whiskey. You'll impress your friends. You'll annoy your spouse. And you'll have some great spirits. Backcountry for 10% off your order at sharedpour.com. I want to share something kind of cool with you here. This is an IW Harper, which is a Bernheim product from the early 70s.
Wow.
And Bernheim was distillery number 1 in Kentucky.
No kidding.
It was like literally like the first distillery. Their distiller number is DSP KY1 or 1KY, whatever it is.
This whiskey is 5 years old, distilled in Kentucky.
Yeah, 5 years old in 1971.
Yeah.
So these are...
Anyone who watches my channel knows that I do enjoy a bourbon from time to time.
Hey, you got a little whiskey sweet tooth?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's something I enjoy. I think it's important to keep everything in moderation, but...
Drink responsibly.
You heard it from Andrew. Do drink responsibly. Bomber, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Cool.
I've been really digging I've been lucky to be able to get into the vintage stuff a little bit, and it really is interesting. It's
Yeah, yet another world of vintage things I didn't even know existed. I mean, being a musician,
vintage instruments,
vintage stuff is like, I just love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I love old guitars. I think people love old things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think because if they are old by the time they get around to you, it kind of belies like a level of quality.
Exactly. And I think that things were built with a better quality just out of like necessity back then. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm in my 30s and so I'm looking for these things and I'm advertised, you know, those things are advertised to me, but I've started to find more products that are like built at a higher price tag, but a better quality.
Yeah.
I recently picked up a splitting axe for, you know, I split all my wood by hand at the cabin, which is like a lot. And so I decided, I was like, I'm going to get a good quality maul. And I found one that's, I think it's called Gransforsbruck something. It's like a Swedish axe. It's like forged by a dwarf, like, and you know, in a mine somewhere. Like, it's legit.
Yeah.
And I love that thing. Like, I care about that piece of equipment. I sharpen it, I put it away, like, and it just feels good. Like, it actually has the dude who like made the axe by hand, like carved into it. And yeah, it was maybe another $150 more than like a Walmart axe. But it's a piece of quality equipment that I know I'm going to have for like a lifetime. Yeah. And so anyway, I think that whole like, lust for something old and vintage is totally related to quality.
Yeah.
And I think that also with musical instruments, there's like a vintage, like, you know, the wood has a chance to like breathe or like do its thing.
That's almost the same thing. And then we're going to get off vintage whiskey, but that's almost like the same thing that happens with like the vintage whiskey is that.
Right. Is there something that the time does to it that you can't do otherwise?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like,
maybe it's in our mind, but you sure.
Right. It's like, does it actually do that or, you know, whatever. And most of the time vintage guitars just like split.
Right. Yeah. They're actually mostly very unpractical for playing.
A lot of cracks.
Yeah. Although I've got some nice ones.
But anyhow, you mentioned this maul that you used to split this wood. The house is entirely wood heated. Yeah. You know, you can't like hook up to a gas line where you're at.
Well, I have a propane heater and a propane tank.
Oh, you do?
I do. But that is 100% emergency backup. So like if I'm gone from the cabin for a few days and I come back and it's negative 38, which is not uncommon Fahrenheit. Although I think negative 40 is where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet. But anyway, irregardlessly. Glad you got that joke instead of making me look stupid.
No.
Anyway, yeah, I have a propane heater. It's not vented. It's a backup one. And I turn it on full blast when I get back to the cabin and it's freezing. And then like, if for some reason, you know, it's like right on the verge of needing like another log on the fire, but not quite. Like I'll turn that sucker on at night at low and let it go. But yeah, no, there's no like utility lines coming in. It's a wood heat cabin, like 99.9%.
We talked earlier about covering the things that would be on your utility bills. What do you do for electric? What do you do for water?
Right.
Heat. We now know what you do.
Yep. So heat with wood. Electric has been a process. It's evolved recently. I always ran a 2,000 watt gas generator. The Yamaha or the Honda 2,000 watt inverter generators are like the standard. They're insanely reliable. That generator always ran and started like even, like I said, like minus 20, minus 30 degrees. They have an eco throttle. They'll run on a gallon of gas for like 12 hours pretty easily. Like if you're running lights and stuff like that, you know, just normal stuff. Insanely good. And just, that's what I used for years. Or I just would keep the lights off. Like in Alaska in the summer, you don't need lights. It's light all day. And so I just wouldn't even run electricity or light a candle or something like that.
You ever use like white gas lamp?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. I've got some white gas lamps, and I even toyed around with the idea about running some propane lamps and stuff, which have a nice light spectrum to them.
Those things just scare the hell out of me, man.
Well, that's exactly it. Anything that has like an open fuel source that you're running as a light, just to me is like living in a cabin that is literally a tinderbox. Like the walls are made out of like the most flammable pine wood.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing, it's like one wrong move and that thing's going to burn to the ground. And I have no insurance on the cabin or anything like that, which we'll talk about the fire that almost took it out here in a second. But yeah, so the generator is great, except for the fact that it's requires gas and it's noisy.
Yeah.
Like all day. And the whole point of being in the woods is like the serene sound of nature, right?
Yeah.
So the game changer for me was getting a power station. And I'm not afraid to pitch EcoFlow.
You can plug them.
Yeah. At no benefit to myself. EcoFlow is a rad company. I bought one of their power stations, the Delta something. And basically what the power station is, for those of you guys who aren't already hip to this, is that the easiest way to think of it is that it's a battery and a charging and an output all in one box. So like, yeah, you could do the same thing with a battery and an inverter and all the same stuff, but it's very like self-contained, and like user friendly for a guy who doesn't want to get way into the rabbit hole of like solar and wiring and inverters and batteries and all that stuff.
Yeah, as a plug-in, so you could charge it, when you're around electricity, as a plug out, so you can do whatever you need to run it.
Exactly. And my cabin just runs from like a normal, 110 volt plug. And so the generator would go into that. Instead, I have this EcoFlow power station that basically stores power from the generator. So I run the generator for about an hour, and that'll give me a full charge on the EcoFlow. And or you can hook up solar directly to it, which I have a solar panel, and it's essentially a toy. It's a joke. It was like a 100-watt solar panel, and it really doesn't do very well at all. So that's something I want to upgrade in the future, but it's just not been a necessity because it's so easy just to like literally run my generator for an hour, charge up the EcoFlow 100%, and that will run for like 2 days with zero noise, zero anything. It's just sitting there. It's just a battery. Just plug it in. And then when it's done, just turn on the generator, which is already wired up through my cabin, just plugs in. It's like, it's stupid easy.
Do you got Starlink up there?
I don't have Starlink only because the cell phone service that I have is in that area. So like so I can use a hotspot for internet. During the pandemic, while at the cabin, I was working from the cabin because I was teaching all my music lessons online on Zoom. And so just living out there, teaching online lessons, I was like, this isn't so bad. But yeah, all through the hotspot on my service provider. I've thought about Starlink, but I just haven't had a need for it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just don't love Elon Musk enough to just buy it anyhow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love anyone I've never met.
Yeah, well, speaking of folks that love solar and love Elon Musk, Andrew recently was building. Andrew, what
did I tell you about staying away from politics in your podcast? It's a bad idea. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe he just likes him as like an engineer.
Yeah.
You're building a solar spot for your place, or a solar thing for your place. How's that been?
Yeah, I mean, I relate a lot to you in terms of, flying by the seat of your pants, not really knowing what you're doing.
Rakish good looks.
Yeah, just learning as you go and figuring it out. But
yeah.
So what I was building was a shed. So it doesn't sound all that complicated, but what's in the shed, it needs to be thermally controlled. And it's, negative 35 up there in the winters. So I really, and I needed to maintain about 55 degrees. So that's
batteries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I've got a pretty steep pitch on the roof because I plan to put panels on the top of the roof there. I planned it out such that it was exactly south facing the roof.
Yeah.
But it was my first time building anything.
Yeah.
But it was so much fucking fun.
Yeah. In retrospect.
Yeah, exactly.
At the time, it's like, this is fucking overwhelming.
Yeah. I was so stressed out.
You're at the lumber yard and you're like, that's how much this costs. And then you're there again. That's how much this costs. And you're looking at your truck like, oh my God, what have I gotten into?
Yeah.
And then imagine the scale of that to go to something that's like what's the size of the shed? Like a 12 by 10 or something?
12 by 10. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like that can feel conceptually so easy.
Yeah.
And then when you're sitting there buying the studs and the plywood for that, it's like, holy.
Yep. Roof was the hardest part for me.
Yeah. Did you frame rafters? Stick frame? Did you do like a flat ceiling on the inside, or did you do cathedral with a pitch?
That has a pitch on the inside, but there's only one slope.
Oh, so it's shed style.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I wanted to maximize the area for solar panels.
Yeah. That was going to say, because if you don't use a ridge beam versus a ridge board for cathedral, like you're in trouble. But
yeah. But I'm super worried about condensation, super worried about getting an air seal. I put a gap on my roof such that there was a
ridge vent.
Yeah, ridge vent. I don't know the terms for any of these things.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You pick it up one cup at a time.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
And so how is it supposed to stay at 55? Is there an internal heat source of some kind? Is it just the energy from the batteries?
Yeah. So I've got an electric heater.
Okay. And it's supposed to be solar charged.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Awesome.
Entirely. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the solar panels themselves, it's about 20 kilowatts. And then the batteries inside, I think, is around 60 kilowatt hours. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it's juice. What are you doing out there? Like, running a concert or something? Like that's, you don't need to keep that much to keep your lights on, right?
So I did all the math and wanted to be able to charge at least one electric vehicle up there in the winter.
Wow.
During the daytime.
Gotcha. I was going to say that's quite a electricity infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy what a project like that could turn into, right? Like conceptually, like, oh, it's just a little shack. It should be super easy. And then did you find it was harder than you anticipated getting into it, or easier than anticipated?
I didn't know what I was doing at all. So it was a lot of Googling, a lot of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It was way harder than I thought it would be, but I guess, I'm a pretty good, I know how to learn how to do stuff that I don't know how to do. So
right.
I kind of picked it up. And once I got the basics of framing and stuff, it turned out to be easier than I thought it would be after my initial freak out.
Yeah.
And as somebody who was trying to start a business with Andrew during his initial freak out, it was indeed an initial freak out.
I had to talk him off the ledge a couple times.
No. Just like anything else, Andrew figures out a way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, if there's any point to this conversation for the folks watching out there, it's this idea that like, if you set your mind to doing something, I know this is like a childhood thing that they tell you, you can be anything you want to be if you set your mind to it. It's like, it turns out that's actually true. And I think that having a vision of what that is, you have to have some kind of vision, right? Like you have to have a thought about where you're going, a goal. Otherwise, you'll never get there. Like opportunities don't happen to you. Like you make opportunities. What do they call luck? Like the confluence of opportunity.
Yeah,
and
Thomas Jefferson has a quote, luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
There you go. Yeah, something like that. And who knows about
and that's the smartest I've ever sounded on this podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Nice job. Way to pick that layup up.
Thank you.
I think that if you like, if you can see it clearly and you know exactly what it is, like it's funny how all the little micro decisions in your life sort of like slowly guide you to that place. Like at a certain point, I heard a Bob Dylan song. It's a deep cut. And
Did it sound like,
no, it didn't. It sounded phenomenal. If we get into the Bob Dylan voice thing, we're going to get an argument.
Oh, dude, Bob Dylan is my favorite artist of all time.
Okay, all right. Then we're cool. Then we're cool. That was close.
How does it feel?
Yeah, die hard Bob Dylan. He's like religion to me. But anyway, there's this Bob Dylan tune called "Sign on the Window," and there's a verse in the end of that. It's like, "Build me a cabin in Utah, marry me a wife, catch rainbow trout. Have a bunch of kids who call me Pa. That must be what it's all about." Something like that. I got to skate through it, otherwise I'll like literally get choked up. And I was like, at 16, I was like, that must be what it's all about. Like build a cabin, catch rainbow trout, find a great woman or a great partner or whatever, and live your life. And that's funny enough. Like that was a vision that I had a long time ago. I know because I found an old piece of paper that I wrote in high school that was like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? There's some project that I had to fake my way through again, 2.1 GPA. And then I found this piece of paper visiting home, a few years back. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what I did. Like little did I know I'd set out on this path years ago. And I think that if you don't have the vision of where you want to be, you'll never end up there. And I think as long as you do have that vision, you'll make all these little micro decisions at all these little micro crossroads in your life that will lead you to those places. And I think that the things that people see online as like being like an instant manifestation of like what you have, it's like, no, actually that was like many, many years in the process, many decisions in the process. And so, yeah, I just encourage people to just think about like what they want, and I don't know that everyone has that. I don't know that everyone has like a predisposition to being like, I have a vision and a goal. I think a lot of people are just enjoying every day. And that's a very Buddhist cool thing too, So anyway, I don't know how I got on that, but that's what I was on.
I don't know. That seems clippable though. We'll keep it.
It's the third bourbon.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about kind of getting through and like, having things that are achievable and, these systems.
Yeah,
and
systems, right. Electricity is what we were on.
Yeah, we were on electricity.
Yeah.
We were having a technical conversation that erred into the
anyone who really wants to know exactly how you need your cabin is going to be so frustrated right now. They're going to be like, get to the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want, I can get back to that.
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
I was actually quite enjoying that conversation. And I also thought of a great pun. We're going to get to that at the end.
All right, well, I hope so. But yeah, electricity. Okay, so generator, short answer, the electricity is a generator that now is a power station. And the invention of the power station or a solar setup, essentially some way to gather electricity, whether it's from solar or gasoline or maybe like a wind or water, who knows, like
Propane.
Propane. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. EcoFlow makes like a smart generator that like will like kick on when your power station's low and then turn back off. All that is, I think, a big part of electricity is a huge part of modern life. And even if you want to get off the grid and live simple, like electricity is pretty necessary for a few things, not for everything. Anyway, yeah. So the power station or a solar setup with batteries and gathering that is like the way to go. Water is insanely simple for me because there's snow on the ground close to 9 months of the year, and so I can literally go out with a shovel and fill up this thing called a hot pot, which is just a pot with a spigot on it. Fill it with snow, put it on the wood stove, and then that turns into hot water. And then I move that to my sink, and the spigot and the gravity, it's like hot running water that goes into a bucket underneath my sink. Like that's the entirety of my setup.
Yeah.
I take the bucket out when it fills up, usually about every 3 days, and dump it out. You can
Drinking water?
What's that?
Drinking water?
Yeah, just boil it. Snow is fine to drink. You can drink snow. I mean, as long as you're not like pissing in it, and then digging from the piss spot, which I've heard stories about. But you can drink snow without boiling it, as long as it's melted. Like it's sanitary. In the summer, I have a pond down there that you can pump water from, so you could use like a backpacking hand pump and purify your water. There's also a spring near me that is a popular spot for local folks to go and fill up water jugs. It's like premium drinking water right out of the earth.
Is it one of the ones where it also has like somebody put a PVC pipe into it?
There's it's essentially, yeah, it's a culvert, but yeah, it's been dug out and a staircase put in. It's for that exact purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, if you're in town, you could fill up a 4 or 5 gallon jug of water, whatever. But yeah, between the pond, I've always wanted to do like a rainwater collection, but it's never been high on my necessity list because there's so much water where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think a lot of places, they don't have that luxury. But there's big rivers with clean drinking water and lakes and the pond that I have and snow and that spring. So it's not a big deal. The big thing was like the gravity feeding down through this hot pot with it sitting on the wood stove, or in the summer, I just put it on my cooktop, which is propane, and heat it up. And to have like hot running water to do dishes to me or wash your hands is like, it's a game changer. Instead of making a kettle and like pouring the hot water on each like dish and all that, like just turn it on. That's a sweet amenity to me. That's like luxury camping.
Yeah. Cause one of the things too is like also when you're cooking, you get, if you're cooking anything that you would cook at home, and I guess part of having a cabin, right, is
you're at home.
Yeah, you're at home. If you try and use cold water to wash dishes, what happens? Like the grease coagulates, and then you're just kind of like smearing it all over the plate.
It just gets dirtier and dirtier. Yeah,
dude, it's just like gross, man.
Turns out hot water is a thing.
Turns out hot water is a thing.
My dad used to always say, "Oh, a little hot soapy water." That was his cure for like everything. A little hot soapy water.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of the old man telling you to rub some dirt in it, huh?
Right, exactly. Kind of stupid advice, honestly, but I mean, for dishes,
I think really hot soapy water is actually way better than rub some dirt.
Okay, well, that's true. Yeah. Depends on what kind of man you want to be.
Yeah. What do you do for the bathroom? Because at a certain point, you're out there in a tent where it's like, yeah, you dig a cat hole and you deal with it.
Yeah.
At a certain point, particularly if you have co-denizens that have some sort of expectation of a civilized experience, you need to address it.
Yeah.
What did you guys, what's your solution there?
All right. Well, to start with, the this would be a perfect example of something that I know nothing about and I'm actively trying to learn, because I've always used an outhouse. Like, dig a hole in the earth and put a box over it with a seat on it and you're done. Yeah. And that's how a lot of Alaskans do it, because in terms of like plumbing, like my cabin freezes solid when I'm gone. I don't keep it warm. So it's a dry cabin. This is what that's called. Like, basically there's no water, there's no plumbing. I think that a lot of people see that as a massive inconvenience and like a deal breaker, actually. Like, in fact, in my YouTube channel, I get people all the time being like, oh, I could totally live like this. I love this. I want to live like this. Except for that whole going to the outhouse and -20 thing in the middle of the night. And it's like, that's valid. But it kind of gets down to like, again, another one of these like fundamental like thought processes for me, which is that the convenience of everything isn't the number one priority. Convenience is not priority. When you do this lifestyle, the whole point is that it's not convenient. It's not convenient to chop your wood. You know what's really convenient is hooking up to a natural gas line and turning on a heater. And then like, you know, what's really convenient is like not having to build the cabin. That's, you know, what's really easy is like sitting there. And it's like, okay, well, if every convenience we're working towards is just getting us closer to being able to go, I have to do nothing ever. Yeah. This is the best. It's like, well, maybe we've lost the point. You know, maybe we lost our way a little bit. And to me, the effort to go out and chop wood, or to have to fire the wood stove at 3 o'clock in the morning because it's -20 and it's cold and I forgot to do it, or to hike out to the outhouse at -20 makes me feel more alive. I get exercise. I don't know. It's just, convenience is not king for me.
Yeah. And so how do you?
Right. I wander out to the outhouse and go.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. However, okay, so that's my preface, right? That's like, all this lofty stuff. I'm currently planning an addition to the cabin, which is a bathhouse. And I'm going to tack it onto the side. But what I was just talking about wanting to learn and figure out is like, okay, well, how do you essentially build an indoor outhouse? How do you build a dry bathroom? So something that doesn't have running water, but that doesn't stink up the cabin. I guess there's composting toilets. I don't know. Hopefully the commenters can get on and be like, oh, just do this, because I'd love to learn.
Yeah, that's what we have, is a composting toilet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think those composting toilets are fucking gross, dude.
They stink.
You know, like I'm sure you stayed at some of the Forest Service cabins.
Well, I dated a girl with one, and I didn't date her, but we hung out for a couple of days, and it stunk.
Yeah, it's gross.
Stinky house.
Why? It seems to me with all that water, you could like make, and it sounds like a relatively easy access, like to the point that, you know, you can drive up to your cabin.
Correct. Yeah. In the summer you can drive there.
It seems like you could probably do some.
I could do a well insanely easy. Yeah, I could do a well. Coming back to the water thing, a well, like I just haven't done it because it's not necessity, but that would be very easy and you could plumb, I think, quite easily. But the problem is the freezing, right?
Right. The I guess probably what you'd have to commit to is some sort of larger propane tank and a steady temperature in there so the pipes don't freeze.
Yep. That's what folks do. Like a Toyo heater that they keep on 40 degrees all year long.
Is there a reason that you wouldn't be able to do like a septic tank and just like take a bucket of water and just keep it in the bathroom so you could fill the top of the toilet? Is that like a thing?
That sounds legit. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying is I have no idea.
Okay, well, if you do that, 3% royalties on that idea. On the ensuing videos. Yeah, I mean, what I want to do is have a place to go to the bathroom that doesn't require like risking frostbite or a moose charge, because that's the other thing is we have gone out to the bathroom in the middle of the night and ran into big animals. Yeah. Which is the reality of living in Alaska. Anyway, now that I've got a wife and a daughter, the convenience of the bathroom is, of course, more imperative. Well, you want your loved ones to have nice stuff, right?
Exactly. And I don't want, anyone to be in danger going to the bathroom. Like, it's pretty straightforward. So anyway, I am planning an addition this summer. The building season starting here in about a month, and put something on there that makes it so you don't have to like get fully suited up and wander out there. Everyone wants to know, like, the number one asked question on my channel is, why is everything so far away? I don't know if you've caught this at all, if you've gone through my comments, but it's like, I'm just trying to imagine a world in where like my woodshed was like 4 feet outside my porch and my outhouse was right here and this was all here. It's like, okay, well, you know, one, like privacy with an outhouse is nice.
Yeah.
And two, like they kind of stink. Like it's literally a hole full of poop.
Yep.
And having it in the woods, like a few feet is kind of nice. So that's always been obvious to me. The woodshed thing is like, we don't need to get into it, but basically there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't put your woodshed like in your driveway. Like that's where my driveway is. And then it's just to the right of it. Sun exposure, like fires, bugs, mice, like all sorts of different reasons why you do that. But that's besides the point. But anyway, having like something that you could walk out to the front porch, go around, and then walk in is what I'm planning. So like that way it's connected to the cabin. You wouldn't have to put on boots to do it. You don't need to plow or like you don't need to shovel like a path to it. So that's what I'm thinking. It'll still just be super rustic and simple, but what I'm planning is like some kind of like vent from the inside of the cabin to that one that like only pushes air that way. So you can have warm air in there from the cabin, but not the stinky air coming back. We'll see. We'll see on the next episode of Alaska Cabin Adventures.
I wonder if one of those, those like automatic fans that you just drop on top of the
wood stove.
Yeah. I wonder if something like that.
Something like that. I'm for sure going to be related to the wood stove.
Are you going to do like a sauna or anything? Cool.
I've already got a sauna.
Oh, do you?
Yep. I built a sauna out there. Yep, I've got it. That's how I bathe.
Huh.
Yep. This is the wood-fired sauna.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you spend time in the bush of Alaska, like the real bush, like you go out to like the villages.
I was down there in September.
Is that right?
Yeah. I went, I was hunting with a buddy, James Majetic, and we went, without getting like too specific. I mean, we were down.
Did you make it into one of the villages though?
Yeah, I was in a couple of them.
Nice.
I went to I'll tell you about it.
Yeah.
Later because I don't want it. Not that you can really blow up a hunting spot like that, but I just don't want to risk it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if anyone's noticed, like I'm definitely not using specifics about anything.
Yeah.
Where my cabin is or where anything is, and that's just a pretty normal thing for hunters and fishermen and
hermits.
Yeah. Totally hermits. Yeah. I don't want anyone coming up saying what's up. But yeah, anyway, the village, like you spend time in the village, like you'll find out right quick the way that they bathe is with a sauna. And I learned that, in a pretty hilarious way, actually. When I first came to Alaska.
What do you mean by that? Because when I think of a sauna, I think of the place that I go where I for sure need to bathe afterwards.
Right. Exactly. Everyone's super confused by this. Yeah. Let me explain. So, I got I was 1 year in Alaska and I got invited to be the cameraman on a native beaver trapping expedition. This was the craziest experience of my life and remains as such. I had no clue what I was getting into, but basically my film instructor in college was like, hey, I got offered this gig from the national parks to come film this beaver trapping expedition out in the bush. I can't do it, but I told him I might know a college student who's willing to give it a shot. And I said, yeah, well, sounds great. Let's do it. And he said, oh yeah, you'll be in, heated tents and all this and that. So I said, sounds good. So I go to this little tiny bush airport in Anchorage and got flown out to Lake Clark National Park, which is the homeland of my hero, Dick Pernicke.
Yeah.
So his cabin was on Twin Lakes, which is a short flight up and over the mountain from Lake Clark. And so we started in Port Ellsworth, and this is like middle of the winter. This is like, cold, like -20 at night. And we go out on this expedition to trap beaver in the traditional way, like old fashioned snares, stick bait, we chipped holes through the ice.
Yeah.
You're using snow machines instead of dog teams, but this is how they made a living for years and years. And I got a chance to, stay in a tent. And like we stayed in like canvas wall tents. I nearly froze to death, dude. I brought the wrong equipment, and they laughed at me a good bit. Anyway, the takeaway from that was, one, what an incredible experience to like meet the native people of Alaska, the people who have been doing this since like essentially the dawn of time for all intents and purposes, without getting back into like crazy history. And
but if you want to get back into crazy history,
if you want to,
you should check out our conversation with Dr. Steve Churchill, an evolutionary anthropologist, where we discuss man as the ultimate survivalist. Sorry.
I heard him editing this stuff and I was like, man, that's fascinating. Like, I can't wait for this episode to come out. I want to check that out.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course, land bridges and all this kind of stuff. No one's been around forever. Point is, the native people of Alaska are incredible, incredible people and incredibly rich history. And it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to totally just submerge myself in that lifestyle and that culture. And they took me in and it was like Dances with Wolves, dude. I was just like, they were calling me white guy, like, oh, the white man brought his snowshoes. Like, oh, they teased the crap out of me. Like, anyway, I was super close with all of them afterwards. But the point of all this is, after about 5 days out in the bush, they were like, man, we need a sauna. Like, we're getting nasty. I was like, okay, we're going to go in and take a sauna, like go relax. Took the snow machines 50 miles back into the nearest cabin that they know. And so they're like, yeah, we're going to go sauna. I'm like, okay, we're going to go sauna. Sounds good. Like, to me, that's like you sit in the sauna, you sweat, you relax. That's like, I'm really confused. So they're like, here you go. Here's a towel. Meet us in there. And so I show up wearing my underwear. And I walk in and these guys are all these are old native dudes. And they're like, they'll look at each other and they just bust up laughing as soon as I walk in there. And they're like, and I was like, what? Like, oh, the white guy wears his undies in the shower. And I was like, oh, we wash in here? They're like, yeah, this is where you wash. And I was like, okay. And so what they do is they pour a bucket of water on an insanely hot wood stove with rocks. And it gets melt your flesh hot in there. They're famous for it. 230, 240 Fahrenheit in these saunas. It's notorious. And then they take a wash bucket and they start to sweat. You sweat all that dirt out of your pores. You get all that crap out. They take a big sponge and water and just sponge bath it up and then pour the water all over themselves. And you walk out of that sparkling clean.
Really?
The cleanest, freshest you've ever felt. I guarantee it. And so that was always a dream of mine, is to build my own wash sauna. And so that's what I did at the cabin, was I built a sauna. Again, before the YouTube era, so I don't have any videos on it, but it shows up in some of my videos. You'll see me wander out there in the middle of the night.
The OnlyFans ones?
Yeah, no comment. No. That's my buddy Tim Johnson from Truckhouse Life. So anyway, but the sauna is how a lot of people wash in Alaska. Yep, wash saunas. So you get super hot, you sweat it out, and then you do a sponge bath or pour water over yourself. You soap up, you have a drain in the bottom. That's just a standard dry cabin way of showering and bathing.
Huh.
Yep.
Never would have. That's super cool.
Yep. And you feel amazing afterwards. You feel amazing.
Huh.
Yep. So that's what I've got.
I'm totally going to do that.
Dude. Bliss. You want to talk about Joe Rogan and the ice bathing thing? You get in that sauna, get all hot, and then cold plunge into the snow or whatever it is. And you feel really good. We can delete that.
No, I'm interested. I think what's going to have to happen. Dude, so here's the thing: hosting this show, I assign myself these insane projects that ultimately always come to fruition. Andrew, sit back down because I gotta. Okay, he was going to come adjust my mic.
How's mine? Am I doing all right?
Oh, yours is perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think you just have these levels up.
No. Just push it back.
Anyhow.
Just an inch.
Okay.
He's just trying to throw you off kilter, dude. I'm picking it up.
You can try. I always end up assigning myself these projects. I think that we ought to build a sauna at your place and film it. And
film the building of it.
Yeah.
Fly me down.
I was gonna say maybe you come back down. We do some fishing, some sauna building, and we have a good old time.
I'll cut cedar all day. It's the best smell in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Build a sauna.
There's another expensive thing that I just.
And the thing that I didn't do that I want to do. So again, okay, if you don't know what you're doing, how do you figure it out? And I think you kind of pinned it earlier. You said well, I may not know something, but I have a propensity to learn it. Being able to learn is more important than knowing something. I don't know how to pour a concrete floor inside of a structure that's sloped to a drain that somehow then doesn't have insane cold and frost coming up through the drain. But that's what you have to do in order to make it proper. I just made a bathtub on the bottom of mine. So when I pour all the water on me, it's standing water and I have to stoke the fire and dry it all out. It's a big pain. So that would be the improvement to figure out.
Cool. We'll do it. So we've been through why you made a cabin, where to build a cabin, how to afford to build a cabin, how anybody can build a cabin. Took a break, talked about whiskey for a weird amount of time, got into the systems that you need for modern convenience, or the systems that
I use for modern convenience at least.
Right.
Yeah.
We had that very interesting sauna diatribe. Tell me what like an average stay at your cabin is like.
Yeah.
About how long are you hanging out?
Yeah.
You know, say it's like for me, like a lot of this, it's such seasonal living that there are definitely times that I prefer to be in certain places, just like as an outdoors person. It's your favorite time of year. Tell me when that is, why that is, and tell me what, like, you know, a couple days or a week looks like for you.
Yeah. I think it's hard to beat March in Alaska. Typically.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That is the,
Sorry, worst month. Is this like breakup season here essentially? Is it
dude,
mush season?
February and March just suck.
Yeah.
Because it's like the snow's kind of shitty.
Yeah.
There's like not a lot to do. Were you and I talking about this the other day? I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think your idea about March is our idea of like April. It's the breakup season. It's the shoulder season. The rivers are blown out. There's not enough snow to go skiing or have fun in the snow. You know, the summer activities like hiking and all that aren't in yet. It's kind of like there's nothing to do. But that's not the case in Alaska. So where I'm at, like March is the first glimmer of the light returning because it's dark. It's so dark. Like from about late September until early March, the amount of light you get is abysmal. Like, I mean, it's like a few hours a day of actual sun up. And it's not like the sun goes up like this. The sun goes up on the horizon and skates across the top of which is beautiful. I mean, it's like a sunset from the time it comes up to the time it goes down. But it wears on your conscience slowly. And so by about February, you're starting to feel
edgy.
Yeah. Depressed is the other word for it. Yeah. No doubt about it. You get cabin fever. So March, all of a sudden, like you get one of those bluebird days and you walk outside and it's like, you know, the sun is just in your face and there's deep snow. Typically this year is like the worst snow year of all time. Almost literally, at least on record. And the snow is amazing. The mountains are amazing. So you're riding on snow machines and skiing and enjoying all the winter activities, but you have long days. You have temperatures in like the mid 20s. Granted, it gets cold at night, but northern lights are viewable. It's just the magic month. In fact, like when people are like, oh, do you want to do something this particular month? Like in March, I'm like, nope, sorry, I'm booked. All of March, if like you want to hang out or come to a podcast or whatever, I'm booked. The only reason I agreed to do this in this month was because this season has been so crappy. Otherwise, I'd say like, no, March is no offense. I save it. It's a very special month for that exact reason. It's the snow month, the light month. Like you feel the earth coming back to life. The birds are chirping. So there's that. But otherwise, like September is by far the best because the summer months in Alaska actually kind of are a bummer because you've got mosquitoes and bears and the light is 24 hours a day. And which is, it's nice for activities like, oh yeah, we're going to go hiking and we're going to get back at 1 o'clock in the morning and there's still daylight. It's great. But you kind of lose your mind a little bit. The insomnia is tough. And it just feels like, I don't know. It's weird. Like not having this like cyclical like having a night every single day is a weird part of the human experience that is good.
I was up there this past June.
Yeah. June's the high of it.
Might've been the previous June even, but, man, I had it was very weird.
It will mess your psyche up.
You kind of feel like, well, I think the strange thing about it for me is that you get this thing where you can very clearly tell the middle of the day, right? Like that like seems to be on like a pretty consistent arc, but it's just as if the sunrise and the sunset lasted for 8 hours.
Yep. Because they're one and the same.
It is bizarre.
Yep. Especially a few days of it, right? Like first day it's like, oh, this is cool. And then by day 3, you're like,
dude, you're feeling weird.
Yeah. You don't sleep well. Yeah. And the bugs and the bears. So like, you sleep with one eye open in the backcountry when there's bears. And I spent a lot of time in the backcountry. Not so much recently, but as a young lad, I spent a lot of time backpacking and doing big expeditions and exploring the high country. And, when the bears are awake, it's always in the back of your mind. Statistically is how I always rationalize bear fear. If someone's afraid of bears, it's like, well, just remember your chances of getting mauled and killed by a bear statistically are so much less than every time you buckle up your seatbelt and get in the car in terms of like getting in a car accident. Like, so you're much safer, just doing your thing in Alaska with bears than you are getting in an automobile and worrying about a car wreck. So, that's like the easiest way to like justify the paranoia. But the thought of getting eaten alive by a bear is pretty gnarly. And it happens, it happens. And I've ran into bears and I've had bear encounters that have been pretty close calls for sure. But
hey, real quick, if you want to hear about a harrowing bear encounter, you need to check out episode, what is it, 005?
Now, who's that?
Rudy Norlander.
Okay.
Dude got his jaw bit off by a grizzly bear about 35 minutes that way.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really good story. It's called
because you guys get grizzlies here, so it's like this is not a uniquely Alaskan experience.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
no, it's not. What episode is that, Andrew?
Episode 6.
Episode 6. If you want to hear more about okay, we get it.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, man.
But yeah, so the summer. I mean, honestly, the summer to me kind of sucks. There's stickers in Alaska that say "Summer sucks" and it has a big picture of like a snowmobiler. Snow machiner is what we call it in Alaska, but I realize that other people watch it, so don't freak out. I mean, the fishing's good for salmon. Like summer's about salmon in Alaska. That's like that's like the focus is like you go dip netting, you get down and you get your fish. But to me, the fall is where it's at because the bugs are gone, the temperatures are better. You start to get like a resemblance of nighttime and the trout fishing just gets so good. First of all, the salmon are in the creeks and the trout are all feeding on like rotten salmon flesh and eggs and all the different protein that salmon have to offer for the other fish that feed off of them. So they get fat and huge and just like aggressive. And, fall fishing in Alaska is like second to none. You're not swatting bugs every time you're trying to cast and the fish are huge and they're plentiful and you could catch salmon, you catch trout, you catch grayling, you catch whatever you want. So I love the fall. It's also the hunting season. I like to hunt for grouse and ptarmigan and other small game. And that's also when the moose season opens and the caribou. So I think that fall, like the shoulder seasons, weirdly, like right before breakup in March and then right before deep freeze in September are pretty prime. But anyway, getting back to kind of the point of your question is like, what does that look like in my cabin? Well, I don't know. It's like anything. It's like I cook, I eat, I fish, I do something fun. I find myself doing more projects these days than recreating. I used to do a lot of recreating and now it's like, oh man, I should get out there and finish that roof or I should get that woodshed built or I better cut, this winter's firewood rather than go fishing or hunting. And that's just part of the lifestyle and that's fine. But those are my favorite seasons.
We've talked about a lot of stuff.
Talked about a lot.
Why do you, I want to ask you why your like videos have so much appeal, but before we do that, I want to talk about that new series you're working on. The, your truck,
cabin on wheels.
The cabin on wheels.
Yeah.
You don't like it when I call it the trailer cabin, do
you? You call it whatever you want. I just was helping you out.
Okay. Tell me about it, man.
So, the skinny of it is that I was unable to be at my cabin for an extended period of time because we had a baby and it made more sense for us to be in town with our in-laws and, staying close to a hospital. And I'm not going to go into the details of that, but basically it made more sense for us to be in town than it is at a remote bush cabin in Alaska when we had a new baby. And so I thought a fun project to do while I was stuck in the city was build a cabin, but there was nowhere to build a cabin unless I put it on a trailer. So that's how it started, was like, oh man, I could do something while being in the city. So anyway, I'm a camper fanatic. Like I've owned an insane amount of different campers, everything from like a Toyota Tacoma with just like a bumped up bed and like a little like buddy heater to like a full blown cab over Lance camper and everything in between. And so I thought it would be awesome to like have an actual cabin, like a cabin that I could take with me anywhere I go. Like we do all sorts of adventures, fishing, snow machining, skiing, hunting, whatever it is in Alaska.
I feel like you and I are going to be doing some adventures.
You might hang out in this cabin and you might dig it. I did put a bet. How tall are you?
Oh, 6'1".
6'1"?
Yeah. I'm sneaky tall.
All right. Your toes will be curled a little bit in this bed, but I intentionally built a secondary bed for the buddy of the gang instead of having to cuddle up in the bed. Anyway, the point is that I wanted to have a cabin anywhere I go, because I always used to joke like, oh, I'd love to have a cabin here. I'd love to have a cabin there. And it's like, well, the best way to actually achieve that was to build a mobile cabin that I could just take to these different places and have for a few days or a week or whatever it is. And it was also a chance to try out some of my like building skills in a way that I wanted to like really refine and not just be like, oh, I'm just stressed out and I got to get this thing done. I wanted to like do it right, like from the bottom up, like the trim, the finish, everything, like make it look good. And so this is my opportunity to do that. And it's finished and it's awesome. It actually like, it worked. Like I was really stressed out because the cabin or the trailer has like a 5,000 pound coupler rating, which is like the part that attaches to the hitch. And so if the cabin was over 5,000 pounds, it's not going to fly. And then all told, it ended up being 4,400 pounds. And I had it weighed like professionally. And that was like, whew, because I had no idea. I just started,
right, you were just sort of
building.
Ballpark.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, I mean, I'm going to use the lightest lumber I can and go as light as I can, short walls, and we'll see what happens. But it all ended up working out. And, yeah, it's just, I took it on the inaugural camping trip up to the mountains, and it was everything I hoped it would be. I was sitting by the wood stove, cozy, warm, and it towed great, and it looks pretty cool. You know, it's not like a big ugly, you know, fiberglass camper sitting on your truck. So what's really nice about it is that it leaves the truck bed open for gear. So I could put my snow machine in there, or like all my, like, you know, say you're going out for like 2 or 3 weeks. You can put all your food and supplies and whatever you want in your truck bed, and you still have your house behind you. So yeah, it's cool. Like I was telling you earlier, it's like the first thing I've done that I'm like truly proud of, which I think a lot of people would be like, oh, you know, what does that mean? But like I've made a lot of music and I've built things, but all I see is the flaws in those things. And that's something, you know, I'm working on.
That's the curse of the creative, and that's what motivates the craftsman, right?
I think so. I think we all fall into that. Yeah. You know, we're self-critical.
Oh, dude, I hate this.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which I think as we get older, we're working on not doing that, right? We should, you know, it drives us to be better.
Things that I could polish a little bit still, but I'm not trying to clown you, but one of my favorite scenes in this, and pretty much actually, I haven't watched the entirety of your truck build, but I did watch when you were trying to square off the foundation. Viewers, check this out.
And this is the moment that I realized I had a pretty serious problem on my hands. As you can see, the 2x4 doesn't sit flush on top of the deck boards at all. I realized that this whole trailer was just kind of out of whack, and I was going to have to figure out some way to fill in all the gaps and cracks in order to have a level building surface to start on.
That shit cracks me up. I think it's like a realistic depiction of an ordinary problem. And I think when people watch you overcome that kind of thing, it's like, oh, okay, well, cool. Like when that comes up, that's not just me. Right. I mean, granted, this is like a pretty extraordinary circumstance, but I think like showing the failure and like showing the continuation beyond the failure is like pretty important. And hey, if you guys dug that, we're going to link to the Cabin on Wheels build playlist on Matt's channel. You can find that in the description here. If you go back in time, would you have spent the time doing a new addition to the cabin, or would you spend it doing that?
You know, I look back at the videos and I think to myself, if I had known just how much work was going to go into it after I, you know, drilled that first bolt into the frame, or after that first piece of framing I put up, I probably would have just quit. Yeah. You know, I see it and I'm like, oh, young self, you have no idea just what's ahead. But that's the beauty of it, is that you don't. And so you just, like I said, one foot in front of the other. And now it's like a dream come true. I I think that a dream starts as a dream, and then through a lot of hard work, you can realize it. And yeah, a lot of mess ups and a lot of things. I was like, well, that's a dead end. Like that's an absolute dead end. I absolutely can't work past this. But ingenuity and a little bit of hard work, you can get past a lot of hurdles that otherwise would set you back. So now I've got this awesome cabin that I can just like take anywhere and literally have a cabin. Like it doesn't feel like a camper. Right. You know, even though that's all it is. It's like a travel, you know,
I think the wood stove does a lot.
The wood stove helps a ton. I think that there's a lot that, you know, it's like, okay, so I get a lot of people on my channel like, well, that's not a cabin, that's a shed. It's about my bunkhouse. That's not a cabin, that's a shed.
What does that mean?
That's what I'm wondering. Like, oh, so do you sleep in your shed? It's like, is it the size of it? Because there's a lot of like, oh, so would you say that Dick Prenicke's cabin is a shed, not a cabin? It's like, well, the dude lived in a shed for 38 years by himself in the wilderness then. The distinction is what it's used for. Does a shed have beautiful interior siding with a bed and a heater and a place to like hang your hat? Well, to me, no. A shed is a place you put your tools.
What do you call like somebody's like shop where they keep the tractor a house?
Right, exactly.
Or like,
is it square footage?
A shop because like there's a tractor and some tools in it?
Exactly. It's the old debate. Like, is it a river? Or is it a creek? It's like, well, in Alaska, a lot of big pieces of water are called creeks. Like Willow Creek is a river by a lot of people's standards. So to me, it's what it's used for. It's not the size of it. And so the fact that I can go in this thing, it has wood, it has a place to sleep, it has an oven, it has a wood stove. To me, it's a cabin. It looks like a cabin from the outside. It feels like a cabin, but it's on wheels and I can take it wherever I want to go. So that's why I call it a cabin on wheels.
So you have had just like crazy success with this YouTube channel. I mean, you gotta be in like the top of like 1% of creators for sure.
You know, I don't know. YouTube is a vast expanse of content creation.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say you're in the top 1% of creators.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's cool. Yeah,
and I think thematically, man, and like you know, execution wise, you're in the top 0.0001% of creators.
That's very kind of you.
I genuinely feel that way because, you know, actually, we didn't even talk about this earlier. I got into your channel because I went up to Alaska with my buddy James. We were chasing some moose around, and I was like, dude, I'm going to set something up here because I found out a couple various things that you and I can talk about later, but all roads led to Rome.
Alaska gets its hooks in you.
Oh, bad.
Mm-hmm.
Bad. There's another quote. It was like, I forget who said this, but the gist of it was, you know, I pity the young man who finds out about Alaska because after that, nothing will ever be enough.
Right.
I forget if you can find out who that is, Andrew, that'd be sick. At any rate, so I started checking out how I could like kind of build and, you know, figure something out to get myself up there in a more independent sense. And that's how I found your videos. And I was like, man, this is my dude right here. And then I found out you were a musician and like, so all this stuff like kind of like dovetailed, no pun intended, right? Building. I know that's why it resonated with me. Why do you think your channel like resonates with so many other folks?
Yeah. I mean, I've asked myself that same question quite a bit. Like I've been doing YouTube videos since like 2011 or something like that. Yeah. And, of course, with zero traction or success whatsoever. And so starting the channel was purely just out of fun. I like making videos. I like putting music to it. And I do stuff in the woods and I make music. And so the two just kind of went together. And so I started it. And then the level of success that I've experienced has surprised me quite a bit. And so I started asking myself, like, well, why are these videos doing well? And I think that it boils down to what I call the Bob Ross effect, right? Like my best video is a build video, a start to finish on building a little bunkhouse, a 10 by 12 bunkhouse that, you know, is really nothing crazy. And so 4 million people have watched that video, and it makes you wonder, well, is there 4 million people who need instruction on building a cabin? I don't think so. Is there, you know, however many billions of people have watched Bob Ross videos, do they actually paint along? And so I looked it up, and it turns out very, very few people who watch Bob Ross are actually painters and paint along. So why are people watching Bob Ross when they don't actually need instruction on painting videos? What's the appeal? And granted, I think there's a lot of big differences, but I think that there's a desire to get back to the fundamentals of life. And I think that in the modern world, with all the conveniences that we're offered and can take advantage of, there's a sense of meaninglessness in life. What am I even doing? Why do I go through the motions of earning money and doing this whole thing? There's very few hardships, I think, for most modern Americans, most modern civilized countries. I think that the meaning of life is more and more difficult to pin down as life gets easier. And I'm hypothesizing, I don't know, I can't speak for my viewers, but I think that one of the reasons that so many people enjoy my videos is because it sort of helps them imagine themselves finding a simpler life and finding a life that consists of things that their efforts directly affect the outcome of their life. I chopped wood and now I'm warm. I built a cabin and now I have shelter. And those simple things that directly affect the quality of your life, I think is a great thing. And I think that a lot of people desire that. I think that depression and anxiety is obviously a big thing nowadays. And I think that it stems from a sense of sort of hopelessness and just being lost in a pretty modern and crazy and complicated world in ways that we can't necessarily actively affect and change. When everything is just readily available, we're not worried about starving to death. We're not worried about freezing to death. So what are we worried about? I think humans are great at thriving in the face of adversity, and we've been designed to do so. For all of our generations up until 60, 70 years ago, actually just surviving the next day with food and shelter and water was a consideration and what we actively work towards. And now that's gone, right? No one's worried about staying warm. No one's worried about what they're going to eat tomorrow. And I think that it contributes to a general sense of I don't know, it's sort of a dystopian future that we're not really sure what the point even is. So anyway, I think that people watch my videos and it brings them a sense of, maybe I could do this too. Maybe I could just live simply, and maybe I could find a meaning in just the daily chores and activities of surviving. And not to say that I'm a survivalist by any standard, because it's I'm not out there I use modern conveniences. I use power stations. I use gasoline. I shop at the grocery store. But just having a simpler life, that the direct connection of the efforts that you're putting in directly affect the way that your next day goes, I think is a big thing. And I think that even though maybe very few people who watch the building video plan to build their own cabin, I think the fact that someone like me with no experience could do it, they think, well, maybe I could do that too. And they could. And so I watch Bob Ross and I think, well, maybe I could make a great painting. And actually, funny enough, if you guys watch my episodes carefully enough, you'll see a painting on my wall. That's a Bob Ross style, landscape painting. And I did that painting. I bought the Bob Ross kit years ago and I painted along and I did the thing and it actually turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not great, but anyway, I think that, I think that just as a society, our number one goal has been to provide conveniences so that we don't have to do this. We don't have to go through the extra effort. Meals are ready. The heat's just a turn of the knob away. And the closer we get to perfect convenience, the more we get to the Matrix, where we're just sitting there plugged in
with the seashell in the year, the Fahrenheit 451 year.
Exactly. And I just don't think we're designed as creatures to do that. I think we're designed as creatures to struggle and to work and survive in a way that requires know-how and skill. And that the closer we get to actually fulfilling those dreams, maybe the happier I've been, for sure.
I think convenience steals satisfaction from the mundane.
That's a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I feel as if we've been conditioned to look at the things that would have given us great satisfaction as being like, you know, par for the course.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like that's why people feel a lot of times like they don't have like specific levels of meaning like assigned to their actions.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing too is that even if somebody doesn't build a fucking cabin, they can watch your videos and get something for it.
Right.
Maybe they start like, maybe they put up like, and not that you're necessarily doing this, but like maybe they go, okay, well, like how can I like, well, maybe I'll build a greenhouse.
Right.
Or maybe
A
I'll
chicken
like,
coop.
Yeah, a chicken coop.
Yeah.
Or like maybe I'll start composting stuff. Or
Absolutely.
you know, maybe we'll get a wood stove.
Right. Well, look at how many people want to have chickens in their backyard. You know, up until recently, eggs were like $2.99. And yet everyone's like, well, I better have chickens. It's like, well, that's an immense amount of work.
Yeah.
Having chickens in the backyard is tough. Like
Yeah.
you got to keep them warm and deal with the hay and the poop and collecting the eggs and all that to get something that is like $3 out of your weekly budget.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Catherine and I are going to sneak one past the HOA and get some
that's
chickens.
right.
Andrew,
That's good.
We were going to do the same thing.
Well, eggs aren't breaking your budget, right?
oh,
I mean, maybe
Not as-
nowadays they're getting close, but
no.
even still, let's be realistic.
yeah.
Even $10 for a dozen eggs. But to crack an egg over a skillet that you raised that chicken yourself and you went out and collected that egg, God, it feels good.
Yeah. And they taste better too.
They do. They taste better.
You don't want those like those
They're
eggs.
pale, right?
Yeah, they
you
look
want
like
it
a
to be
manila envelope,
yes.
dude.
You want orange, deep orange.
Yeah.
I used to raise chickens, and
the color of a legal pad, dude.
let me
Like,
just tell you,
that's, like, what
huskies and
most of the-
chickens don't mix.
Raccoons
Oh.
and chickens don't mix.
Yeah, a lot of things. Chickens are like, hey, kill me to like the
Yeah.
natural world. That's the look they have.
Yeah.
Exactly, though. That's exactly it. I think to reap the rewards of your own labor is so satisfying, and there's no satisfaction greater than the one that I've felt to stand back and look at something that I built with my own two hands and be like, I built that thing. You know, I built that thing. I have no idea how I did it, but somehow I built it. And I think that if you can say that about your food, if you can say that about your heat, if you can say that about your house and your water, that's a great way to live.
Feels good, man.
It does. It feels really good. And I think that a lot of people are missing that. And I think that that's a result of just the way that society has gone. And don't get me wrong, I definitely benefit from the modern conveniences of
Yeah.
humanity. Like I said, like these power stations and batteries.
I don't think it's binary.
Right. Yeah. Right. I can't forge metal. I can't build a wood stove. I can't refine gasoline. I rely on society still. I'm not like living in a cave, but yeah, I think the more that you can do things with your own two hands that contribute to your direct way of living is really what it's all about. And yeah, so maybe that's why people like it. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Maybe people just like the scenery and the music. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got that quote. You should never go to Alaska as a young man because you'll never be satisfied with any other place as long as you live. That's a quote by John Muir in his journal.
Holy shit. I would. Sorry.
Which I have
Star
read.
me.
Yep. Yep. You're on it, man. I mean, and that's the truth about it, right? Like you come up there and it's like, oh, and which is why it's so awesome to be down here right now. I would never have just booked a trip to Montana.
Right, you were saying this. You were saying this the other day because there's so much up there. It's like
You could spend a lifetime exploring Alaska and not even come close to seeing it all. A lifetime and a pretty major budget too. So to get to come down to Montana and see like the country where like cowboys came from, you know, this is like cowboys in Indian country, right? Like you look out and you see the mountains and you see the plains. It's like, wow, this is it. And it still is here today. Like we went into that, I forget what it was,
Western
but
Cafe.
the Western Cafe or the Murray Hotel. We went after fishing, and to see these ranchers with these like legit beards and awesome hats. It's like, there it is, man. That's the real deal.
Dude, I told him that I was going to take him to meet Clayton sometime.
Yeah.
Clayton Phipps.
Oh, real cowboy.
You want to talk about a woo.
Yeah. And like, you know, and you see the same thing in Alaska. Like you meet like sourdoughs. That's like, wow, like you're the real deal. But to get a different taste of that outside, because it's like, yeah, you could spend your whole life just checking out Alaska, but what a treat to be able to like see something different, you know, and with the same like spirit of, adventure and, outdoor pursuits and a lifestyle of like creating your own life based on the land. Yeah. Montana is every bit as good as Alaska in that sense, at least from what I've got to experience so far.
Yeah.
I mean, just walking into the airport and seeing the cowboy hats is like, this is going to be cool.
Yeah. Well, there are many more cowboy hats that get off those planes and then get back on them.
I like your bit about that.
My Montana hat.
Yeah.
Then it's like December, they're wearing the straw hats.
Yeah. And I mean, granted, like, I think if you zoomed out on a map, like, and you look at Montana, like, in terms of getting truly remote, like, obviously Alaska just beats them out of the water.
Yeah.
Like, but hell, it looks like there's a lot of places around here that you could disappear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You were a musician for a long time.
Still am.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, like, yeah, I don't think you ever stop being a musician. I think like,
it's an identity curse. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that there's a difference though between like, well, let me ask you this. Do you consider that your main thing anymore? Or like, is it something that if it took off, like something happened and you got placed in the next, Blake Lively movie,
right.
I don't know when this is coming out, but that's very current right now.
Right.
And like your whole like thing.
If you have the opportunity to make it as a musician.
Yeah. I mean, but like, do you consider yourself a musician primarily?
Yes,
you do.
I do actually. Weirdly, at the core, I can't get away from it.
Yeah,
it's who I am. Yeah, and if you've ever watched my videos, you know that I'm just like full blown on the music. All the music in the videos is original. It's recorded. I
was gonna pitch you, man.
Well,
you pitch. You're doing a better job than I would have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to it because I say it in every narration of the videos anyway. So
sure.
Yeah. So my buddy Forrest Wilson, who is by far the most incredible musician I've ever met in person, just happens to be a good friend of mine. And him and I have made all the music for the channel since day one. It started as just a way to avoid copyright. I wanted to have music, but I didn't want to like have to deal with YouTube saying like, oh, that's someone else's music and you don't get to monetize or whatever it was. So we started making music for it, and it actually turned out to be the most awesome creative pursuit I ever got involved in, because I really enjoyed the way that the music interacted with the video. And so a chance to get to make music that then coincides with the woods and the cabin building and all that, to me was like a dream come true. If I could make it purely as a musician at age 36, I don't know. I don't think I got it in me. I don't want to tour.
Well,
I don't want to be out on the road. Like there was a time as a kid, it's like all I wanted was to be a rock star. I wanted to play guitar and rock and roll and be on tour and drink too much and fall asleep in the chandelier of a hotel.
Yeah.
True story about Keith Richards, by the way.
Mm-hmm. You read Life?
Yeah. No, I haven't, but
it's real good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It scratches the itch, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all you need, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think the reality of being on the road and being a musician is far beyond what I actually want to do. And so to me, getting to make music that contributes to the channel and contributes to what I'm doing creatively is a dream come true for sure.
I think also, and there are some listeners going like, hey, Hayden, who the fuck are you, man? I have like a little bit of a music history and like, I don't want to get into it right now, but like based on what you and I have said, like
the guy's got some big
I'm not like bullshitting, I guess is the thing. Well,
when you invited me on the podcast, of course, I checked you out, and it's like one of the things that pops up is like you with long hair looking like a musician. It's like, well, I can relate a lot to that because I pursued the musical dream for a long time. I will not say the names of the projects that I've done, but I have many albums on Spotify, many failed albums.
Oh, dude.
And so to have a YouTube channel that had a little bit of success and a little bit of reach, and part of that is the music, to me is huge. It's awesome.
I think the other thing that it does too is, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but when I am doing something that I'm not putting so much stake into that one thing, and I have like, oh, I'm doing it for this. Not only is it more enjoyable, but a lot of times
you make your best stuff. You make your best stuff. Me and Forrest get together. We're out at the cabin recording these tracks. and it's like zero pressure. We're just riffing, we're improvising. Almost everything that we make is purely improvisational. We literally just hit record on the mics just like this, and we're like, let's play a riff. And we start going and we record it. It's like, there's no pressure. There's no like refining. We just let it be 100% organic, and we take the tracks and we put them in the bank. And that ends up being what I use as a soundtrack for all the videos. And weirdly, it ends up being so much better than the stuff that we like, you know, meticulously try to make.
Because you're not overcooking it.
Exactly.
Man.
Exactly. Humans actually are really good at doing stuff when you get out of the way of yourselves.
Dude, when I had that song in that Shia LaBeouf movie, I remember this overwhelming feeling of like, how do I get in the next one? You know, or like whatever it was. And dude, I could not write shit. And then ultimately, like, the pandemic happened, couldn't tour. When I couldn't tour, I got this other, you know, job with Meat Eater, and then, you know, my whole life changed. And
I have a very similar story, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But anyhow, I'm pretty jealous that you're still doing music in a lot of ways. I was telling Catherine that I miss it a little bit the other day. What I would love is if we could use one of your songs to take us out of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. Let's fire one up. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
That camera right there. Tell them where they can find you, man.
Alaska Cabin Adventures on YouTube. I got a website, alaskacabinadventures.com. I post on Instagram every 6 or 7 months.
Just get up on that, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really care.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What song are we going to hear coming out?
Well, let me just take I just want to take a quick second to say what a great host these guys have been. They've taken me around. I get to fly down to Montana. I'm like a nobody from Alaska who's making YouTube videos, and these guys have been really generous and showed me a good time. So it's been awesome, and I really appreciate you guys having me.
Dude, thank you for saying that, man. Yeah. That's awesome.
Super cool.
What song are we going to listen to taking us out here?
I think in the current state of mind, I think Prenike's Dream is going to be a good one to go out on.
All right, everybody. Prenike's Dream by Matt Brenna?
By Alaska Cabin Adventures.
By Alaska Cabin Adventures.
Yeah, me and Forrest Wilson.
Good episode, dude.